Good afternoon, everybody. I have to say this session has a very beautiful quality to it. There's a lot of very heartfelt work that's happening, and a lot of barriers are being moved through in a way that's really beautiful to see and a privilege to be a party to and a witness of. Don't be satisfied, however. Wherever you are, whatever's gone well, or perhaps not, as far as you could maybe ascertain, don't judge. Don't be satisfied, and don't become complacent. Right? Stay with the practice. Now, we continue on with our look at the sutra, the Lankavatara Sutra. And here, if you recall, we're discussing some different ways of understanding, some unhelpful ways that folks understand what nirvana is, what it must be. We covered several of them yesterday as related to people that are in a lot of suffering or that have fear of suffering, even if they're not in it at the particular moment. And if that's the primary driver, then there's certain mistakes that tend to occur. Here, however, we encounter quite a list of admonishments, because here we get into the philosophers, so watch out. The hammer comes out when the philosophers are mentioned. And it can seem quite ponderous, actually. If you read the text, and if all you have is what the typical translation is, and you actually think of it like a professor of philosophy opining about various thoughts, it can seem very distant. But I assure you that these errors are not just for some ancient ivory tower centuries ago. No. These are pitfalls that are readily on display on any given day's worth of Dokusan. Okay, so don't just, it's easy to hear these as obscure academic fossils from bygone eras. They're not. In fact, none of the Dharma is. The Dharma is imminent and immediate, and it's very much alive, right? So, we have to kind of, as we do the Buddhist business, and it is Buddhist business of looking at these mistaken views, let's be mindful that it's not talking about some strange philosophy thousands of years ago that the Buddha had to refute, although it may have been. But it's also talking about a very common trap of the human mind, which is as real today as it's ever been. So let's see what guided tour the sutra offers us. I was saying to Rinsen Roshi as we were discussing a little bit, this is the last chapter of the Lankavatara. It's been a long time coming. I think a year ago, last March, was the beginning of my endeavor to espouse the sutra. And it feels in some ways like it's moving to some kind of a crescendo. It's like, last warning, oh, by the way, don't forget this. Oh, watch out for this one, kids. Now, drive safe. Do you have enough gas in the tank? Make sure you put the seatbelts on, everybody. Did you check the tire pressure? Okay, it just goes on and on. Okay, so it really has this very motherly, to me, it feels very motherly, the list of watch out, honey, watch out, here we go. It's winding down now. You'll be okay. Have you peed before you hit the road? It just keeps going like that. So useful guidance for us all, though. So let's tune in. So we move into the nirvanas as discriminated by the philosophers. Okay. As to the nirvana discriminated by the philosophers, there really are none. That's the quick version. Mahamati says, a little more, and the Buddha says, well, okay, fine. So some philosophers think of it this way. So some philosophers conceive nirvana to be where the mind system no longer operates because of the cessation of the elements that make up the personality and the personality's world. Okay. Now again, these are mistaken views of what nirvana is. And nirvana is Buddha nature, right? Realization and awakening and embodiment of Buddha nature. This is nirvana, okay? So some folk mistake and think that nirvana must be when the mind system no more operates because of the cessation of the elements that make up the personality in its world. So this is a view that says either simple death, when the elements return from whence they came and you die, yeah, there's nirvana, you're dead. The Buddha's saying, no, that doesn't quite catch it. But more subtly, when the elements of the personality cease. So in other words, if I were to somehow, if I got a scrub brush and I could scrub off every aspect of my personality and just get rid of anything particular to myself, any element that I consider to be me or mine or my personality or my take. Now, honestly, it's a good thing to know how to do. In fact, every time you sit, you ought to be dropping what you think of as yourself, however you understand that, right? As I often say, I die every time I sit. And no one in particular is sitting, okay? When I'm sitting, if I'm sitting, quote unquote, well, it's not Rinsen, the abbot of Buddhist Temple of Toledo, now sits zazen, breath by breath. That would really be pretty goofy. In fact, that would be a problem. Okay. No one in particular is sitting. This is the best take, right? So this view is saying that nirvana is simply having these elements of personality ceasing. After all, these people would assert, you should have no personality. And the Buddha says, no, that doesn't catch it. Okay. Nowhere in the sutras is it recorded that the Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, had no personality at all. Dogen had a personality, believe me. Hakuin, there was a personality. Okay, so it's not about that. And the Buddha who attained nirvana, he wasn't dead when he did. So much for that one. The second, they view nirvana to be where there is utter indifference to the objective world and its impermanency. Now, what you'll see about each of these, some more than others, there's kind of a grain of truth in it, or perhaps it's correct, but it's partially correct. Okay, so be careful how you hear this. Don't take this as an extreme kind of thing. Therefore I must have more personality. Quick, lipstick. No, relax, okay? Don't go crazy with this stuff. Just notice gently where the encouragements are, okay? So another mistaken view is where nirvana must be where there is utter indifference to the objective world. Utter indifference, that's nirvana. That's the great freedom. The great freedom, as Jack Kerouac can be quoted, I don't know, I don't care, and it doesn't make a difference anyway. This sort of shrugging indifference, this smoldering apathy, this lack of care is not nirvana. The sutra says quite clearly, that does not reach it. Nirvana is not simply having utter indifference to the world and its impermanency. And it can happen. People can notice the impermanency of things and feel like, well, so none of it matters. And my escape hatch is to simply not care. After all, if I don't care, it won't hurt. So I become a professional of not caring. I practice not caring. It's just easier that way. Son, that doesn't cut it. You're going to tell me that Kuan Yin here doesn't care, doesn't feel the cries of the world? No, no, no. If you're using your Zen practice as a way to reify some kind of uncaring escape hatch, I will find out. It will not be acceptable. But you can see where perhaps in moments we've done this, right? Yeah. If I could just get rid of my personality, I'd fit in better. Who hasn't had the thought? If I could just be more like the other kids, wouldn't it be easier? Right? I just don't care. Oh, that's better. No, it's not, says the Buddha, says the sutra. Another goof. To consider nirvana to be a state wherein there is no recollection of the past or the present because of the cessation of all the substrate. Now that's, to unpack that, it's saying the substrate, meaning the storehouse consciousness, I think is what this is pointing to. Substrate is like the layer underneath consciousness, you could say. So nirvana must be when you're in a state where you have no memory. That's nirvana. Look at the animals, right? Or the trees, the clouds. They don't have memory, and they're doing it great. Our problem is we remember stuff. We remember what a jerk we've been. We remember what a jerk they've been. And there's the suffering. So the key, obviously, is to somehow obliterate your memory. No. We saw yesterday it's not about obliterating the senses, rather it's awakening them, right? You're not trying to wrap some kind of weird Zen cocoon around yourself so you don't sense anything. Not at all. I've been working with a lot of us of late with the senses and how to awaken them and aliven them and tune into them and see the beauty of things. It's not about shutting everything out. What value would there be in this maneuver? So, in this case, this idea that nirvana must be a state where there's no recollection of the past and no collecting of the present because the underlying layer, the storehouse consciousness, has been obliterated. See, some attempts to obliterate the underlying layer of consciousness, no memory, no self-awareness. That must be what it is, you see. But this clearly is not it, the sutra says, because nirvana does not consist of simple annihilation or vacuity. It's not nihilism, folks. And this will towards self-annihilation runs very deep. Very, very deep, okay? You know, we all, I expect, know these so-called three poisons, right? Greed is this unexamined desire to draw things in. We feel a lack or a gap, and we wish to fill it, so we try to draw in an unwholesome way. Thus, greed, right? Anger. This is the pushing out. I reject this. This is not this, not that, not the other thing. Push it out, reject it, right? That's not going to cut it, right? Now, at the bottom of ignorance, which can manifest as this kind of extreme not caring, right? That's kind of a surface level of ignorance, just not caring, whatever kind of thing. Underneath that, though, there's this kind of will to self-annihilation, which is at the base. It's like this, it's like a totally black shark swimming in a deep, lightless sea, circling ever, but unseen, right? It's this darkness in the dark with some movement that whispers, don't you wish you didn't exist? And that's at the root of suffering. Don't forget, ignorance is the basis of greed. Ignorance is the basis of anger. This mistaken perception of the self is why you think you need to fill some kind of gap, or why you think this thing isn't you. There's no gap to be filled, and there isn't anything that ain't you. But those two have as their necessary ingredient this delusion about the self, this ignorance of the nature of the self. And that the root of that is this will to self-annihilation. Perhaps you felt the pull of this from time to time. So, nirvana has nothing to do with these kind of self-annihilation maneuvers. However you get there, however you think about them, that's not the answer. Okay? The sutra says quite plainly, nirvana is not simple annihilation, not simple vacuum space. Now, it moves into a different kind of category of mistake. Here it says, nirvana must be the mere stopping of all discrimination. That's what it is. It's no longer picking and choosing. Yeah, that's it. We hear that one in the sutras. It's just, I don't care. In a different way. I'm not going to discriminate anymore. When an image appears in front of me, I'm not going to say, oh, the stupid reading glasses that are so irritating. Or, oh, the lovely coffee I'm so fond of. No. Well, I'm just going to stop all discrimination, and then that's nirvana. Now, this is one of those ones that's got a little bit of a truth to it, because it is beyond picking and choosing, but how do you understand what that means practically? I'm not going to discriminate, so if the light's green or red, it doesn't matter. Yes, it does. It's wise to not be beholden to your reflexive and uncritically examined discriminations of things, but that's not enough. That won't do it. Okay? And there is a healthy discrimination, which we all need. You won't be able to navigate lunch without it. And that would be a true tragedy. Another mistake. Nirvana must be produced by the self-effort of getting rid of the dualistic view of knower and known. That's what nirvana must be. It's the self-effort used to get rid of the dualistic view of knower and known. Well, that sounds good. Aren't we trying to get the non-dual dharma thing going? Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I'm gonna do this thing, and I'm gonna drop this dualistic view. I got it now. I can't wait to get into Doksan, and I'll show her what's going on. Yeah, I got it now. Ring. Jingle bells, jingle bells. Get back to the Zendo. But again, there's a little whiff of something good smelling in it. Clearly, okay, this being captured by discrimination falsely and unwholesomely is a problem, but there's a wholesome mode there, and you need it, okay? Clearly, being trapped in dualistic mind is a problem, and it does take effort to see past that. It's true, but that's not enough. And this is the thing people a little bit sometimes have trouble to appreciate, okay? The Buddha, Shakyamuni, was not the first person to experience non-dual awareness. Not at all. In fact, the Buddha went to great lengths to study with the masters and teachers of his day, And that's important to understand. Everybody wants their founder to have had no teachers. Please. We're all people here, all right? Everybody's had teachers, okay? But he did find some of the teaching to really not really resolve the matter. This business of self-effort into the non-dual. Not sufficient. Further, some view that nirvana, they assert, is simply getting rid of the notion of permanence and impermanence. See, that's what nirvana must be, is you're free from this mental construct, this mental map, this labeling and discriminating of things, this concern, am I permanent, am I not permanent? All you have to do is stop caring about that. And poof, there's nirvana. Okay, tell you what, I'm going to use my watch. You stop caring about that, and we'll see how long the relief lasts. Okay? Yeah, it takes one text from that old friend of yours, and suddenly, woo, back to the spinning. So it's not about just casting aside notions of permanence or impermanence. Further, one more in this kind of bucket. There are those who view that nirvana is simply getting rid of notions of good and evil. See, if you could just, exercise this as an exorcism, if you could kick out this view of good and evil, then you'll find nirvana. See, there are analogs to that you find, not just in the ancient world where the sutra was taking place. Nietzsche, 1844 to 1900. You have your way, I have my way. As for the right way, doesn't exist. There's no such thing as good or evil. Just, I have my way, you have yours. Doesn't cut it. I'll grant you, there's far more wrong ways than right. But there is a right way. There is awakening and realization. And there is the absence of awakening and realization. Yes, there is. This business of simply thinking if I just get rid of this idea of good and evil, that's nirvana. No, that's thin gruel, man. That's not cutting it. And let's be very clear, most in the room have spent time seriously investigating into the nature of the moral disciplines of the practice. Evil exists, okay? That which causes or creates or amplifies suffering. It's not complicated, but that's real. It hurts. When you cause suffering for yourself or others, knowingly or not, if there's such a thing as evil, let's give it that definition. And in contrast, anything that alleviates that suffering, that soothes the ills and the troubles, this is good. And it does matter. Your suffering matters. It's not just to not care about things. So, the Buddha's quite clear. Yeah, good and evil exist. Maybe not in the way of a little angel on this shoulder and a little demon on this one, vying for your choice, and the consequences will be with you for eternity. It's not like that cartoon kind of stuff. But to simply say, all I have to do is be rid of ideas of eternal or not, or good or evil, just don't care about these things, and that's nirvana? No, not enough. And by the way, I could speculate that there's a kind of a suffering of a person who's actually quite beholden to their ideas of permanence and impermanence in a way that it's really hurting them. And for that person, for a certain time, being able to let go of that might be critically necessary. There are some who are so, petrified by the trauma they've taken in or inflicted on themselves around notions of good and evil that they can barely breathe in the world. Everywhere they look, it's good versus evil, and that the entities are trying to trick me and all this stuff. It's fearsomely sad. I could see a time where there might be a reason to take a practitioner for a certain moment and say, drop this good and evil stuff. It's not good for you. Sure. But it's partial. It's a particular medicine for a particular condition. And if that person resolves that matter fully, that is not nirvana. it's, let's say, a useful insight that more of us could perhaps benefit from at times, but that is not nirvana. Remember, the question is, what is nirvana? Can you say something about it, about realization of Buddha nature? And the Buddha's saying, well, okay, it's not this. This is what people think it, some people think it's like, it's not. It's not this. Some people think it's these things. It's not like everything on this list is pure, terrible. It's just it's not nirvana. Thus, don't be fooled. Okay. The next. There are those who feel that nirvana is when a person overcomes passion by means of knowledge. That's the deal. That's where you put your chip down, right there. Overcoming passion by means of knowledge. Here, I wish more of our fellow creatures could overcome their passion by means of knowledge. It gets us into a lot of trouble. Just a few quotes. Epictetus, Stoic. It is not the things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. Yeah, I could sign on that to a degree. Seneca, also a Stoic. Reason is not opposed to passions, but it is the means to correct them. I could quibble, but the means to correct makes sense. The heavy, Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Now, frankly, this is wise counsel in terms of worldly matters of form. I think more of us could benefit from some of that. Is that the same thing as coming to full and complete Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi? No. It maybe makes for a better day. It maybe makes for a more loving parent or a more capable teacher or a more effective salesman, perhaps. But don't confuse those little consolations of more effective and a little bit happier with the real deal. Not sufficient. Nirvana is not just using your rational mind to quell the indecencies of the passions, should they be such. I mean, good move, but don't confuse, see. And my first teacher used to say over and over, Zen is not a self-improvement project. It used to bug me. Because back in the day, I liked self-improvement. I thought that was a good thing. But it's not sufficient. And this is particularly challenging for people that are very good at setting goals and achieving them and being rational in the face of calamity and so on. You can feel like, well, that's strong, and that's certainly better than being weak, say, and just being yanked around by events that really you can't do anything about. Sure. In fact, I could easily point to chunks of the Dhammapada, say, that would kind of sound like it's in this key. But again, it's an insight for a particular person who's suffering at a particular time of a particular thing. And it's helpful for that. Therefore, beautiful. Don't confuse that for the end goal, though. I mean, after all, one of the things that should be occurring, to some degree at least, in that first stage of training, is that you're centering yourself in the one point. You know, the hara is there, and in the middle of it, in the center of it is the one point, and you begin to actually land your mind in your center. And immediately when you do that, you're less beholden to the impulse and mood of the pulse and sway of things out here in the light show. It's a good thing. But that's not sufficient. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient. Until that's occurred, we really can't do anything yet, anything other. But once it's occurred, you're not done. Very ironic. I remember many, some number of decades ago now, I'm old enough to say that, I was doing a Dharma combat with Myotai, then Osho. And the details of the exchange don't matter, but they occurred, and I was feeling quite brilliant about it all. She could tell. And she laid something on me I'll never forget. Don't be satisfied. May your life go well. Don't be satisfied. Isn't that the point? Aren't I supposed to let go of dissatisfaction and be myself improved? No. She was beckoning me to, there's more. You think you know it? Oh, watch out now. And she was right. So we move from overcoming passion by means of knowledge and, say, logic and rationality. Good stuff. But is that nirvana? No. Okay. The next. Now here they kind of group a little bit, okay? And this series has to do with eternalness, eternality, I guess. Nirvana is something to do with this eternal thing. So this person, they say, well, in nirvana, recognizing that form is the bearer of pain, and that form is deeply alarming. Happiness must be in the world of no form. That's nirvana. To move into the formless realms. Okay. And thus, one mistakes a sort of temporary relief from stress for true liberation. Okay. And this is one of the highest of the heaven realms, is called this formless realm. And beings that inhabit that space are said to live incalculably long lifetimes, but still finite. And I tell you, when a being drops out of that realm, as they do, as you have, you fall pretty hard. Because for a very long time, you haven't cared about anyone or anything. All you've been doing is escaping. You got good at it. But that is not nirvana. I think eventually what happens, just to spell it out a touch for your edification, you hang out in that formless realm. This is not some esoteric thing, by the way. You can do this in your sitting. Okay. You hang out in that formless realm, and then all of a sudden, a little chill starts to creep in to your formlessness. We don't like it. We don't want to chill. But it starts to get colder and colder. What is this chill? This is horrible. And you start to go from a formless place to a frozen place. And once you realize you're frozen, you want to get unfrozen. You're way away from the formless realms now. Now you're in a frozen realm, right? The formless realm just wants to not be bothered. Just leave me alone. It's close to that self-annihilation impulse. It's as close as you can get and still have a wisp of consciousness there, which, by the way, you have no choice about. Like it or not, that wisp of consciousness is there. So in this formless state, you can abide for some time, and yet the chill inevitably comes, and the frost starts to creep up, and suddenly you're cold, 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 and then you want to get out of that damn cold, and you break it, rah, and you're angry, and now you're into the hot hell. You see? over and over and over. And this is not just some post-mortem fairy tale. This is like your day, okay? This is, if you really, really get in touch with what's going on when you're sitting, you see this whole thing playing out. It's not unique to you. Have some humility about your suffering, please. Further, because this rationale goes, because individuality and generality are recognizable in all things inner and outer. There's philosophical for you, but if you take it to simply mean, well, because there's the relative and absolute in everything, then there's no destruction. And because that, all beings maintain their beingness forever. And this forever beingness is eternal. And that's what nirvana is. See, if everything is this play of relative and absolute or specific and general and in and out are no different, then the leap goes, it's eternal. And that recognizing that eternalness itself is nirvana. All you have to do is just recognize the eternal. Again, I'll wait. You've had your recognition. Look, we spend a lot of effort trying to understand and get into the relative and absolute of things, yeah? This is good. Is that alone nirvana? No. Careful now, watch out. Remember, when the Buddha was teaching, he said, this is like those who create a raft to get across the stream. Once you get across the river, you don't need the raft anymore. Why are you hauling that thing around? It's served its use. Leave it for others. They may benefit from it. You, however, need to let it go. Oh, but I like my raft. I etched my name in it. I have my little corner. I'm fond of my little corner of the raft, It's my little nook. Watch out. Okay, moving forward. This one sees nirvana as the eternality of things, as the absorption of the finite soul into the supreme Atman. There you go. So when my soul then gets reabsorbed to the great oversoul, the Atman, the true self, then that's nirvana. That's what nirvana is. See? So somewhere over the rainbow, I'll absorb into Atman. Now notice, Buddha is not saying, and that's not true. He's saying that it's just simply understanding that is not nirvana. That is not realization of true nature. That's a thought. That's a story. Further, those that see all things as a manifestation of the vital force of some supreme spirit to which all return. Isn't that funny? I mean, what do they call that? New age? New age thinking? Yeah, pretty new, isn't it? Was that fresh? Here, rather than my little soul merging with the Atman oversoul or whatever story. No. It's not. That's silly. It's the vital force returning to the source of all vitality. That's cuts it the right way. Isn't it funny? I mean, the little batch of words. Oh no. These little batch of words. Oh yeah, I know that. A little bushel of words. Really? You're satisfied with that? I know you're not. I know you're not, and you do too. Just don't be fooled. Don't trade awakening for little bundles of words, even if they smell good and they seem tasty. Careful now. And people go to war over less distinction than this. Right? The Hatfields and the McCoys. To anyone else, they're the same people. To them, oh no. The Sunni and the Shia, the Armenian, the Azerbaijani, on and on. It's ridiculous. We're ridiculous. Let's get honest. You don't have to be so. So seeing all things as the manifestation of some vital force of a supreme spirit to which all return may be lovely. Is simply saying that and thinking that, or even realizing that, is that nirvana? No, it's something else. You know, the Buddha's career is filled with people pushing him on these philosophical queries, and sometimes he just would respond by not responding. It's like, this isn't even good enough to be wrong. You're not even wrong. And it's, you know, unfortunately it's true. I mean, perhaps, you know, we've been that person, or we've interacted with people that their smoke and mirrors and their dysfunction or their suffering, whatever, is so intense that there's literally nothing you can say. No matter how well crafted or how carefully presented or how bespoke, it's just not going to land. Why? Because their antenna's bent. Your antenna's got a kink in it. And we're very sensitive, okay? When that antenna gets a kink in it, the signals get a little messed up. Sad but true. Okay. Now, this one I like. And he says, especially silly, quote, are those who think, of course these are all silly, but especially silly, the Lankavatara goes on, and you'll see why this is especially silly. They view nirvana as there's a primary substance, keep track now, there's a primary substance and a primary soul, and the primary substance and primary soul interact, and it's this action and reaction that produces all things, and from this transformation of qualities is nirvana. Exactly. Huh? That's the pug response. And that's why the Buddha said, yeah, that one's especially silly. I won't even try to make sense of it. Now, this is interesting. This is kind of modern, this one. There are those who think that nirvana is simply realizing that the world is born of action and reaction and interaction, and there's no other cause necessary. Look, that's all there. It's atoms bouncing around, okay? It's cause and effect. Get over this idea there's some creator, vital force or entity or something. That's ridiculous. You're being silly. Clearly, there's nothing but physical forces acting and interacting and reacting, and all you need to do is to realize that, and then you have nirvana. No, says the sutra. Let's see, I had fun with this. Lucretius, about 100 BCE. Nature is free and uncontrolled by proud masters, and everything happens by itself through innate properties. Okay? The materialism of Dawkins is nothing new. The understanding about evolution is, which I like. But this pure reduction to materialism doesn't cut it. It does not cut it. And many Zen folk tend to be prone to this. We tend to have been raised in some kind of theistic tradition that we kind of feel, to be charitable, we don't feel resonance with, or we were traumatized by, or we just plainly see right through. And so a lot of folks tend to swing immediately to the other extreme of just pure materialism. And so Zen seems to be this kind of caveat, like a backdoor way to practice something like, of course it's not religion, of course not, but a group-informed spirituality with rites and rituals. That's not a religion that, is purely materialistic. And the sutra says, no, that doesn't cut it either. There is cause and effect, sure. I need a new eyeglass prescription. It's going to take some time to come in. And because supply chain issues, I have these cheap readers, which irritate the hell out of me, because I either can see you or not the text, or I can see the text and not you. Tough to be me. Cause and effect. Because these are, 56-year-old eyes with certain genetics. Cause and effect. Did God strike me with whatever the sightedness is when I can't read close? As punishment for sin, or as proof, giving me a proof to an opportunity to suffer on behalf of, come on. Materialism, cause and effect, get over yourself. Is that nirvana? No. I mean, again, like some of the, no one really can hurt you. You hurt yourself based on the stories you tell yourself about things. A good insight to have. Much nutrition can be had there. Actually being able to appreciate the fact of physical interactions without needing to see some entity steering the ship, it can be a useful insight. Don't confuse this with awakening, though. It's not awakening. I can remember when I was much younger, I would go into Doksan, and what had served me middlingly well was to produce theological insights based on stuff I'd been reading and studying. And that used to get claps when I was at, the Catholic high school. And that got accolades at various retreats I went to in that tradition. And Zen, you didn't want to hear it. But my insight, yeah. Go sit some more. And he was right. Luckily enough, for whatever reason, I had the gumption to do what he said. Many cling to their ideas and leave in a huff and take their ball of suffering with them, clutching it as though it's a trophy. And thus the disease is passed on from generation to generation. Each etches it differently, thinking it's the right version, but it's just the same thing. Now, different from materialism, this one. There are those who think that nirvana is simply realizing that Ishvara is the free creator of all things. Yeah, nirvana. Ishvara is the Hindu term, interchangeable for our purposes with Vishnu and Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. It's not unique to Hinduism, this personality, overseer, creator entity. In Judaism, we have Adonai. In the beginning, God created all things in the heavens and the earth, Genesis 1:1. There. Starting right off, and that'll steer you right into all the icebergs. Christianity, Logos, through him all things were made, John 1:3. Islam, Allah is the creator of all things, from the Quran 39, verse 62. Sikhism has the same in their way. Guru, he himself created the world, from a text I'm not familiar with actually, called Guru Granth Sahib, something like that, page 7. Point being, this maneuver of saying, okay, look, I know this is tough for everybody, but there's a personal entity that created it all, and all you have to do is get right with that entity, and that's nirvana. And the sutra is saying, look, I'm not going to say yes or no about any of that stuff, but I will definitely tell you that is not awakening. You can spend the rest of your life believing or disproving or disbelieving whatever you want about that stuff. It's irrelevant. Clinging to ideas is relevant, though, and it's relevant because it will get in your way. It's not about that. So, last one for the day. This is great. Clinging to these various foolish notions, there is no awakening. So, there are those that consider nirvana to consist of the fact that there's no awakening. Crushed it. Solved the Gordian knot. Sliced right through it. Aha, I got you. The awakening is there's no awakening. Aha! No. That's not it. And bizarrely, you will find some teachers in various traditions they would self-identify in the Buddha Dharma that say there is no awakening. I respectfully bow and say, wrong. As the sutra does. As my experience is. Simply, I'll make peace with the fact that Kensho is a male fantasy. It doesn't have any bearing in reality. I've seen through it. There, that's your nirvana. I'm sorry. No, it's not. Awakening is no myth. It's not just some trick that Zen teachers have going for them. The real deal is there. So all these little escape hatches, the sutra is trying to close and say, don't waste time with these. Not this, not this, not this. Cut this away, cut that away. I can even see a time where it might be very, very productive, quote unquote, and useful for a person to just get rid of this idea of awakening. Look, just forget about that. Do this thing as a temporary device. It could be very useful. If somebody's obsessed about their awakening, am I awakened? How awakened am I? How is my awakening compared to their awakening? Do I have the true awakening? Do they have the true awakening? I want the awakening. All right, just let's say there's no awakening for a while. Well, yeah, oh good, then we're on the right track. There's no awakening for you. Good, now we can get to the work. Because you know what's always left at the end of the day? Your daily life. Isn't that crazy how it always comes down to your day, your daily life? I mean, consider those poor, misguided people who think that they're going to come to session to escape their life. Yeah, it doesn't last very long. So let's conclude with a little pointer about what awakening may actually be. We've heard, we're not through, by the way. There's more of this laundry list of what not to pay attention to, but we'll conclude with a little something more to the point. We can turn to the ever-wise Dogen, only Buddha and Buddha. To seek to know the self is always the wish of living beings. However, those who see the true self are rare. Only Buddhas know the true self. People outside the way regard what is not the self as the self. On the other hand, what Buddhas call the self is the entire earth, is the entire cosmos, I would say. Thus, there is never an entire universe that is not the self, nor with or without knowing it. On this matter, refer to the words of the ancient Buddhas. Long ago, a monk asked a master, when hundreds, thousands, or myriads of objects come all at once, what should be done? When hundreds of thousands and myriads of objects come all at once, what should be done? The master replied, "Don't try to control them." What he means is that in whatever way objects come, do not try to change them. Whatever comes is the Buddha Dharma. Everything that rises, including every one of these mistakes, is it too. Whatever comes is the Buddha Dharma. They aren't objects at all. That's why it's best to bow down with what arises. If this is what's actually arising, bow to it. Do not understand the master's reply as merely a brilliant admonition, but realize that it is the truth. Even if you try to control what comes, it cannot be controlled. An ancient Buddha once said, "The mountains, rivers, and earth are born at the same moment with each person." The mountains, rivers, and the great earth itself are born anew with each person's birth. All Buddhas of past, present, and future are practicing together with each person. These generous words of the ancient worthy are pointing us to the right direction. Enough with the mistakes. Simply realize the true self. And whatever your practice is, that's your practice. Let go of this idea that you need to be further along or you're further behind or any of that stuff. That is not helping you. Every step is exactly it. So here we are. We have this incredible miracle of this human life for those that are hearing this in human form. You have this incredible gift of this human life. Use it, realize it, and above all, give it away for the benefit of all beings throughout space and time. May it be so.
so